What's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of Mindset Monday. And I tried to record this down the beach again this morning because it's really quiet down there, but it was really windy and really loud. So I'm here in my hotel room in Bali. I'm still in hotels for the next, almost 5 weeks, I think, until my bill is ready in January. So I'm looking forward to that, actually having my own space and not living out of a suitcase. But what I want to talk to you today is probably more simple than a lot of other episodes that I've had, and it's all around your mindset around training. And for so many people that we work with and we talk to on a daily basis, and that I've worked with over the last 24 years, their mindset around their training is a big indicator in terms of why they have or haven't achieved what they want, or for them to be able to achieve what they want moving forward.
I agree. I agree with
And for a lot of you, think training is just showing up. And look, for the initial part, sure, that's definitely going to help, right? Like if you don't show up, there's nowhere to start from. But for a lot of us, it's so much bigger than that. And what I mean is, it's the discipline in the beginning to build the consistency that gets you into momentum. I'll say that again. It's the discipline that gets you into consistency, that gets you into momentum. And so many people are over here waiting for momentum. They're waiting to feel motivated. You got to understand that motivation doesn't exist. It's fairy dust, right? No one's going to come along and sprinkle it and suddenly you feel motivated. You might be enthusiastic and excited in the beginning and go out and buy all of your new workout gear and I'm ready to go. And then you realize that you got to show up day in and day out. You realize you got to train when you don't want to. You realize that you're sore and you got to get up. You realize that you had a shitty night's sleep with the kids and you've only had 2 hours sleep, but you need to get up, right? Like that's the stuff that's hard. And motivation has jack shit to do with that. Like nothing. It's discipline. And the discipline to get up and to make showing up and training a non-negotiable in the beginning, especially if it hasn't been something that's a part of your life, which I'm going to touch on in a second. But if it hasn't been something that's been a big part of your life, and suddenly now you're trying to go from not doing any training to working out 5+ days a week, which look is what I would recommend, right? Like why brush your teeth 3 days a week? Like get your ass moving as many days a week as you can. But that's a big adjustment. And with a big adjustment comes some resistance. It comes change, and we are resistant to change initially.
I completely agree.
Until we realize that it's just a matter of building it into our routine. It's just a matter of us tweaking and adjusting things until it fits into just what we do on a day-to-day basis. And it's really interesting to see this process in the beginning of somebody's journey, but also later on in their journey, because in the beginning, everything's new. So everything's an adjustment, but you have that enthusiasm and that willingness to go through the change because you've made that big commitment, right? But as soon as time goes on and things get busier, this time of year, right? We're heading into silly season, a lot of events, a lot of things, end of year is harder for work. You're pushing things to get things done. And suddenly now the discipline that you did have is gone because you only had a certain level of it, right? I had enough discipline to fit it in because things weren't too crazy. And when things do get crazy, where's your discipline gone? It's gone, right? It's no longer a non-negotiable. Everything else has become more of a priority. And the first way to know that this has happened to you or to somebody around you, and you'll know it exactly from seeing this, right, as a reaction, they get defensive.
Don't get all defensive about it. It's just a fact.
Straight up, they get defensive. And I see it with my clients. Like, hey, how is your routine going? When are you going to fit in train? I would love to, but I just don't have time. Or I would want to, but it's just not possible at the moment. And they're very, you know, what would I say, angst, right? They're very reactive. And the reason why is because they have an internal frustration knowing that they have no longer maintained that non-negotiable. They have no longer maintained that discipline because they let everything else in life get away. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's also not hard. It's just a matter of looking at it at a practical level and going, okay, cool. I used to have 3 hours spare a day. I now have 30 minutes spare a day. What am I going to do in that 30 minutes? Well, I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. I've got cleaning and folding and house washing to do and everything else. Like, I'm just going to do that, and I'll do this later. And I know it'll be a big job, and I know it'll be harder, and I know, 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 but yet nothing's changed. And maybe eating's good, which is awesome, right? Maybe you've maintained eating during that period. Maybe you've maintained, I don't know, your good level of self-talk during that period. But yet that internal conflict is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because you've lost your discipline, you've lost your consistency, you're no longer in momentum. And that's what I want you to realize. And that's what I want to give you within this week's episode is the fact that you have all the answers. You have these internal indicators, right? And then you have these external measurements that back up whether these internal things that are happening are in line with the external results that you want. I hope that makes sense to you, right? Like internally, you want all of these things, but if I'm not achieving them externally, it's because I'm not showing up. I'm not doing what I need to do, right? I have my non-negotiables are gone. My discipline is gone, right? I start saying things like next week and later and things like that. I start getting more defensive when people ask me how things are going, or when I even think about what I've got to do. It now becomes this big thing. And in the beginning, the easiest way to solve that is that feelings don't exist. And I talked about this in last week's mindset episode. Like feelings just can't exist when it comes to your actions. If I remove feelings from my actions and I just lock in those actions wherever I can fit them in, wherever, because the when doesn't matter, only if. When I can do that, my mindset is okay, cool. I've got these like, imagine I was going to war, right? And I had these like, I had to put these people out first. And if I didn't put those people out first, like we couldn't even begin the battle.
Watch the silhouettes on the horizon!
All right, maybe war's not a good example here, but once I've done that, then I know that everything else I can start. If you don't put those actions in place and maintain them and keep them there and fit them in wherever they need to around what's changing, then nothing's going to change.
I completely agree.
You're never going to start the game. You're never going to be in the game. You're just going to be like maybe occasionally dabbling, or where I see most of you getting frustrated and really annoyed with yourselves is that you're just talking about it. You're talking about it. You're thinking about it. It's consuming your thoughts again. You're like, I know I should be, but I can't. I know I should be, but I'm not. And you have the justifications and the stories that come back in, and then you're back into that, just that world of shit. Rather than, you know what, I'm just going to put out the cavalry where I can, when I can, and get it done. But if you get to the end of the week and you haven't done that at all, and when I say at all, right, like you look at your practical outcome for the week. How many days did I work out? None, right? You have a donut. You didn't do it. You didn't find time. You didn't make yourself a priority even once in the week, right? You got to understand that that is going to affect your mindset when it comes to training. Because you're basically telling yourself that you're not that important right now and everything else is. And look, everyone goes, oh, you know, it's easy for you to explain everything else. I've run multiple businesses at multiple times when I have my kids full-time in other countries, right? And I'm literally starting my day at 3:30 in the morning. I'm finishing it at 10:30 at night, right? So, you know, I don't buy into your story because I've still been able to fit in one, sometimes even two training sessions a day around that. All right. I've had close to 100 staff and I've had to deal with every single one of those people and still find time for me, still find time for my kids, still find time for everything else. All right. So you got to understand your story is either going to drive you or it's going to drag you.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Think about that, right? The story that I'm telling myself, it's either going to drive me forward or it's going to drag me back. And again, when I'm thinking about this mindset around training, I think that it's just showing up is enough. It's not, because showing up in the beginning is great, but are you going to show up long term? Are you going to show up when it matters? Are you going to show up when things are tough? Are you going to show up when you don't feel like it? Are you going to show up when you've no longer become a priority or you feel like you don't have a single moment to breathe? Are you going to show up? Because if you don't, who's going to show up for you? Like, who's going to take the time to put in the reps for you? Who's going to take the time to plan your meals, to organize what you need to do, to make better choices? Who's going to do that for you? Because what I can tell you, the number one person that's never going to do it for you is later. Later doesn't exist. Only now, right? That doesn't exist. It's a mythical story that you tell yourself to make yourself feel better that you're doing nothing now.
Yikes.
It doesn't matter how much. It just matters if. If you can't fit in your entire program, if you can't fit in everything you want to do, just nail what you can. Because again, I've got to think about this tool that I'm sharpening, that I want to program, that's going to set me up for long-term success, that I don't have to constantly go through these cycles of start, stop, try again. Oh, get that little bit of enthusiasm to then drive a bit of discipline for a certain amount of time, and then shit gets out and I've got to go back there again. And I guarantee you, even when you think about that, it's like, oh, all right, here we go again. You know, like it's huge. Whereas like for a lot of our clients and everyone that I work with, right, it's just nail that 80%, because shit's always going to happen. Stuff's always going to come up. But if I'm like this with 80% of what I need to be consistently, then those speed bumps are small. I don't do these giant start stop cycles the whole way through here. That's stopping my progress. And often it's actually making it harder for you to be able to achieve what you want long term. Think about that. Like from just a pure anatomical point of view, every time you stop and start, you actually make it harder for yourself to be able to burn fat long term. You actually slow down, mess with your metabolism, and we actually almost have to reboot to then get you back to where you were, which then delays us being able to move you forward. And like, why do that? Like I say all the time, why don't you just headbutt a wall? It'll be way more fun.
Dobby! Stop!
Headbutt a wall, telling yourself the stories that are dragging you back. Just have a conversation with yourself about all the reasons why you can't, and headbutt the wall at the same time. I'm sure it'll be a fun process for you, but it's about as useful as doing that every day that you're choosing to do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with one thing, and it's probably the most important thing, whether you're willing to take ownership of it or not. Pull back from your shit. Like, pull back from everything that's going on, because this is where we view things when stuff's going on, right? I can't see around. I can't see what's going on, all right? Pull back from it. Now it's not suddenly so big. Like here, look how big my hand is when I'm looking at it, right? But here, now I can see everywhere around it. I've got perspective, okay? Cool, I've got all of these different things going on in my life right now. It's all full on. It's all, consuming me. Great. Guess what? I got some space here. I've got some space here. I've got some space here. Here, where's my space? It's overwhelming. It's consuming me, right? I feel like Predator, okay? Like, you got to be able to pull back from what's going on and send the cavalry where you can. Pick your spots, pick your moments, pick your wins. It doesn't matter how many, it doesn't matter how much, it only matters if. It doesn't even matter when. But if you're not willing to play that game, you have to understand then the world you're going to be living in, which I go over often because it's literally where I see and meet people every single day. It's within the pain that they are in, that they don't realize that 99.999% of it is their fault.
True talk, y'all! True talk, y'all!
And I want to remove that from you. I want to take away that burden, that heaviness, and give you a few practical things that you can focus on that are going to set you up for success no matter what happens. So pull yourself back from it. Work out where you can start creating some wins. Discipline, okay, is not easy when it's not something you enjoy. For me, showing up to training is something I love to do for myself. So even when I'm not tired, even when I don't want to, I do it. One, because it's a non-negotiable, because I know it makes me feel better. Doesn't mean that I actually want to go to training every day, because often I don't. But for me, training is something that I love. So the discipline around training is easy, right? Eating chicken and broccoli is not something I love. In fact, I fucking hate it. Okay. So for me, being disciplined to do that in certain moments, or do that around 80%, still enjoying life and not living in a restrictive way, is what allows me to stay disciplined with my food and my eating to achieve what I want. But if I set that up in a restrictive way, when something that the only thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hate, it's going to be really hard to create discipline around that. But if it's in line with what I want, that's where I have to focus. Because for you, if training is sucktown. You don't enjoy it. You don't want to do it. It's overwhelming. You hate it. It's just not something you like. Cool. But do you like being in pain, overweight, unhappy, unattractive to yourself and your partner, whatever it might be, like just in pain and unhappy? Do you like that? No. Well, cool. Let's do the little part that we don't like to end up with what you do like. All right. And that's got to be, like I said, you got to put the cavalry where you need them. Right now, if I need my troops to go to town in nutrition, cool, let's go. If they need to get up and get to training in the morning, if I have to wake up an hour earlier, whatever it might be, right? Or if I'm sitting down like, oh, I'm done for the day, feet up, Netflix time and snacks. No, motherfucker. Get on the treadmill, get your weights, get your dumbbells, go for a walk, hit the gym, whatever you need to do, get it done, then put your feet up. Or just go to bed. Get your recovery, right? You're not going to miss out on the TV show, right? You're going to miss out on the years you could have had not feeling the way that you wanted. And I know which one I would rather sacrifice. All right. I look forward to connecting with you guys later this week. And yeah, hopefully coming from somewhere better than my hotel room.